It's a good-looking crowd, Cosmoverse. 5 years. It's been nearly 5 years since the beginning of this great ecosystem that we called Cosmos. We started from $0, a dream, and scaled this to $40 billion plus across the entire Interchain. And we've done it on the backs of dreamers, the many entrepreneurs in this room that didn't want to settle for just being a smart contract. We believe in sovereignty, open source code, and the ability to make and define our own tech stack and our own future. For those of you who don't know what Cosmos is, it's a set of interconnected blockchains via IBC, and this is possible because we have a lot of shared architecture across the many blockchains of Cosmos. The stack is the Tendermint consensus engine at the bottom with the application blockchain interface talking to the various modules of all these different blockchains. So why Cosmos? We already mentioned sovereignty. Interoperability is another massive one. In a day and age where there's bridge hack after bridge hack after bridge hack, IBC has served us incredibly well. The seamless nature of being able to set up relayers between different blockchains and be able to transfer assets seamlessly. It's modular. We're able to we have all these different custom blockchains with different use cases, things like Akash focusing on GPUs, or Jackal with data storage, or Osmosis as a DEX. We're able to make custom-made blockchains with standalone modules to serve the underlying needs. It's secure, it's scalable, and it's open source. And ultimately, what we're able to build is just bounded by our imagination, even 5 years into this journey. And in my mind, Cosmos is all about disintermediating solutions to dichotomies. So, originally back in 2018, 2019, 2020, you're forced to be a smart contract and inherit someone else's assumptions. An example would be transparency and privacy. If you're a 100% transparent blockchain, you obviously aren't private. And so we need to be able to give builders the power to define how they navigate different trade-offs instead of forcing everyone onto the same opinionated architecture. And disintermediate we have. At this point, there's 100 plus Cosmos blockchains, $1 billion, even in these conditions, a monthly IBC volume, and that $40 billion collective market cap we talked about earlier. Now, this brings us to AADAO, the origin of all of this amazing innovation. In 2024, people ask, what is the future of AADAO? We feel like the Interchain, it's blossoming, it's growing, there's so much exciting energy, but where does this leave AADAO as a leading innovator and perhaps distant from value capture? So before we get, too sad, we need to talk about the strengths of AADAO. It's open source and has been since day one. There's no central developer team. It has active, opinionated governments. In an era where Solana and Ethereum, they choose to sidestep and avoid governance, we embrace it in Cosmos. And if done correctly, is absolutely a strength and a differentiator from any other blockchain ecosystem out there. AADAO has widespread DeFi adoption. It's spread throughout the Interchain, tens of millions of dollars worth of TVL. New DeFi protocols choose to support AADAO from day one. We have excellent economic security, high quality relayers and validators, which, by the way, any relayers or validators out in the audience? Look at that. Dozens of you guys here coming all the way out to Dubai to support this ecosystem. Shout out to all of you validators, one block at a time. 250,000 monthly active accounts, a $45 million community pool, deep, neutral liquidity. This one's kind of subtle. Because the Cosmos Hub didn't launch its own DeFi suite out of the gates in any capacity, every new DeFi kind of product in Cosmos is fighting over wanting to have that volume, wanting to have that liquidity. And so kind of this neutral approach to liquidity to date has made it a widely adopted asset. And then finally, a strong and recognized brand. To this day, the SEO of Cosmos is wonderful. Even as Ethereum in the world of L2s continues to, it's going through a process which many of us would call cosmosification, right? So we're front-running and continue to front-run a lot of the narratives and realities of other blockchains are only starting to discover. Now, there's some weaknesses of AADAO. We have splintered mindshare. We struggle with having economic alignment with interchain growth. Even as we've seen dozens and dozens of chains launch, how does that value come back to Atom? There isn't necessarily a clear growth flywheel. There's regulatory uncertainty. There's fierce shared security competition, specifically with the likes of things like EigenLayer. Perhaps a lack of marketing spend and war chest compared to the other centralized competitors. No primary thought leader, conflicting visions as it pertains to minimalism versus Atom 2.0, and maybe unclear product market fit. Despite this, Atom is continued to be used, and there is absolutely a path for real yield in the hub to kind of climb out with all of those strengths that I mentioned earlier. So, circling back to the future, who does Atom serve and what does it provide? We're at a fork in the road. The hub needs to decide, is it here for security? Is it here for liquidity? Is it here for governance, venture, scalability, interchain capital? There's dozens and dozens and dozens of ideas of what the hub should focus on. And as a general principle, if you chase two rabbits, you will lose them both. So what I want to do is outline a couple of extreme differentiated roadmaps of what the hub could do, primarily to illustrate a point. That there's finite capital, and the hub needs to, with all of its core development teams, pick a direction and dominate it. So this first one, I call it hyper-atomification. In this world, Atom becomes the most liquid, resilient, neutral, IBC native crypto. Even as Bitcoin and ETH get bridged into Cosmos, they're always going to have to go through some form of another blockchain or another hub or another blockchain bridge. And so there's always going to be extra security risks, but Atom is uniquely positioned to be the largest native IBC asset forever and always. So this hyper-atomification route, we would ossify inflation, we would remove ICS, we would remove CosmWasm, we would remove the community pool, we would remove the XGov module, we would trim down the accounts module, and have selective state pruning. This turns Atom into a crystal clear interchain capital asset with no questions as pertaining to its role, but obviously rather radical. Another roadmap from back in the day, which many of you are familiar with, is security minimalism. In this world, Cosmos Hub is the most resilient and simple security provider. Freezing non-ICS product development, investing in multiple restaking solutions, removing CosmWasm, perhaps introducing rotating validator sets, and code removal and trimming efforts as opposed to adding additional code to the hub. This third one is what I call an aggregate offering. And I would say this probably maps onto the current state of capital allocation for the hub. We have Hydro, which is a kind of liquidity auction platform where all the different Cosmos chains and products can bid on Atom liquidity. We could also, continue this path of having ICS and partial set security continue to be adopted by new players. Venture investment, another relatively new concept that's been spearheaded by AADAO. We actually recently announced investment into Drop and Ellis and Plaza, which is super exciting. But we can continue to invest into the Atom economic zone. And when people think about where do I build? Why should I come to Cosmos? This kind of aggregate offering together maybe can beat an EigenLayer that doesn't have some of these kind of liquidity and venture support pieces of the puzzle. And then a fourth one, which is starting to be socialized, is the concept of Halo, which is a shared sequencer and settlement layer. There seems to be this middle ground where one of the lessons of the last 2 years is maybe not everyone needs a blockchain, but maybe we need more flexibility than just being a smart contract, and that's where Halo really fits in nicely as an infrastructure provider, and I'm sure over the course of the next 3 days we'll be hearing a lot more about Halo as a product offering. So, aggregate offering, third option, launch and thrive via liquidity, security, scalability, and venture support. Fourth one is what I just mentioned with Halo. If we really choose to go all in on this, maybe we put less resources into other offerings and really focus on Cosmos Hub securing a futuristic shared sequencer and settlement layer. And then there's the fifth option. Well, there's two more short ones I'll mention, but this is another interesting thought experiment, which is maybe the hub's role could be, instead of trying to compete with the interchain, and instead solely focuses on investing into the interchain. And so with this radical roadmap, you would freeze all product development, you'd invest $15 million plus into the interchain, into new chains or old chains. All of these investments would be governed in a decentralized fashion, and all those investments would get staked. You'd focus on improved governance tooling, governance as a service, and then the hub really becomes ultra aligned with the whole interchain because its community has literally invested into the vast majority of the most impactful ones. So as this fifth option, Cosmos Hub aggressively invests and governs the interchain. Maybe another interesting one, permissionless cosmosm. Spicy take, not sure how people feel about that. And then as the last one, perhaps another roadmap that gets unveiled in the next 3 days, because rumor has it there may be a product team forming for the Cosmos Hub. So, my primary point with all of this is we need to embrace a singular future for Atom. There's many different exciting competitive routes for the hub to go, and as a community, that should be extremely exciting. We had our Atom 2.0 moment, where we vetoed that down. But really what we need now is a similar Atom 2.0 moment, but where we choose a singular future. Now that leads to Atom Accelerator, our role in our future as well. Within whatever roadmap emerges as a community-funded organization, we will be all in supporting that direction. So we're not here to choose the path, but we are here to aggressively support it. And our role here at the Atom Accelerator DAO is to accelerate consensus into productive outputs. We're approaching year 3 of kind of continuing our mandate with the community, and one of our big takeaways is that we essentially were handling too many functions, and we would rather narrow in on a narrower mandate and be really, really elite and excellent at a small set of things, as opposed to trying to take on too many functions. So you can expect from us in the future a narrowed scope where we focus on RFPs, specifically supporting roadmap items and key public goods. We'll of course continue to manage existing grants and pushing governance along, and they would be removing business development, marketing, and inbound grants, instead kind of diversifying that out to other organizations better suited to handle that. Also be looking to do a reduction in funding request, and also having venture as a separate community proposal, just so we can get kind of full sign-off on the community as it pertains to that AADAO function. So a lot for everyone here to chew on. This is extremely exciting times for Atom, as long as we can unify around a competitive future. And I think this next 3 days is going to be full of productive, high-level conversations, and I've never been more excited. Thank you.